Okay, woo! So here we are mid-mission. Today is day 22 and we couldn't be here at such a beautiful location, being Table Mountain, the second of the two highest mountains that we were looking to summit, and not do a podcast. And so we'll probably be squinting quite a bit because we've got the sun glaring, but we wanted to get this angle so you guys could see the waterfall behind because it's just absolutely stunning. So the past 22 days, I don't really know where to start. We're going to be probably getting maybe 15-20 minutes of this, and of course that's like a minute per day for the 22 days that we've been doing, so this is just touching the surface. But it's been amazing, it's been brutal, it's been beautiful. We've seen a lot, we've experienced a lot, we've got stories for years, and I think what's best to start is day one, where we were dropped off by a helicopter. We woke up and then we started heading upstream, and that was a battle.
Yeah, I think the first days actually were probably the most dangerous in terms of getting the risk of injury. I mean, we were going for hours every single day, going over rocks. At any point we could have twisted our ankles. And looking back in it now, it was kind of insanity what we did, really. You know, all those kilometers against the current, dragging the kayaks, all the gear. That was a hell of a mission.
I think so. I think the fact that we faced it on the first couple of days really helped, because if we were facing it now, I think we'd struggle a lot more than we already did. But even those first, the energy's pretty low at the minute. But we'll come on to why that might be soon. But I think those first couple of days we still had energy, we were still heading upwards, but even so, we all smashed our shins in. Ash absolutely ruined his feet. Dick and I both face planted the water, almost headbutting a rock. You know, it's a miracle no one lost any teeth or rolled an ankle or you know, picked up any injuries that would have affected the rest of the mission on day 1 or 2.
Yeah, because that was the injury prone section, wasn't it? That's like, if anyone's going to get injured, it's going to be then. And there were even a few near misses then as well with the falls, as you said, the trips. Just to break that down, so we had the kayaks probably weighing in at 50 kilograms with the kayaks, and we were pulling it upstream, and there's lots of rocks, and because of the sky and the sun glare on the river, you couldn't see necessarily where you were stepping, and so you would crack your shin, your knee, your feet. You know, my toe was so badly damaged that it's only just starting to recover 3 weeks in. It's been painful. It's been a bit of a setback. And then I lost 3 toes because I just could never... 3 toenails.
I was just say, wow.
Go on my toes.
That's quite...
It's bad, not that bad. That's all you're supposed to
Yeah. And that was just brutal. You know, from then on, my feet just stayed wet, and it was a hindrance, if anything. It was... but it's my own fault, getting shoes 2 sizes too small and then keeping them wet and sandy. It was grim. But that aside, after 3 days, we finally ditched the kayaks, didn't we? And we started heading towards Tabletop, which is the highest mountain here in Suriname. And that was a different kind of battle. Well, just to break it down, Dick was stung by bees. He went right into a bee's nest. Matt was stung by wasps. Jacob was stood for far too long in an army ant's nest and suffered the price. I'm sure you saw that video on Instagram. They were all over him, and all in all it was just brutal, hacking through, sort of machete in hand. You know, mountains are hard, jungles are hard. You combine those two and that makes a formidable challenge. You know, you're hiking up whilst hacking through the jungle, but eventually we made it. But Tabletop was a challenge. I'll let one of you guys explain that.
I'll pass Dick in a sec, but just for context again, you look at the height of Tabletop on Google and it's 1,300 meters, something like that. It's height of Ben Nevis, and you think, oh, it's a day's walk.
You do.
From the point we landed, it took us 7 days, a whole week, to summit this mountain.
Yeah.
It was by far the hardest mountains I've ever had to climb. The terrain was impassable at some points. The consistent variations of it, and the fact that you're wet, completely wet for a week straight.
Putting wet clothes back on the next morning.
And cling to you is is, you know, that's actually one of the luxuries. But the rest of it is just absolutely brutal from me as an outsider. But Dick has lived in this jungle for a while, and he knew more what to expect.
Yes, what you're saying is it's not so much the distance or the elevation, you know. People are going to look at the map and be like, oh, 1,280 meters, peanuts, man. How many kilometers did you do? Like 12, 20, you know? What are these distances? What is the elevation? But through this jungle, oh my God, it was so terrible at some points. It was soon that we realized we won't make it up the summit with all our gear. You know, we need to break this down. We need to make camp somewhere, and we decided to make camp just below the source of the river. And from there, we decided to go up the mountain with a day pack, but we already knew this is gonna be far, and this is gonna be heavy. So it's not something we probably can do in one day. You know, we're gonna be back when it's dark. And then, you know, Ash's feet completely trenched. Us all very, very tired. And know too that we have very little food. So we brought some energy bars. And at first, you know, it was like an energy bar a person, but we soon realized this is not going to work. We need to divide them up, you know. We need to break them down. So at one point, it's funny because eventually it became like normal for now, you know. It's like we have an energy bar for lunch with the four of us. You know, we have a bag of peanuts for lunch with the four of us. You know, it's not even a bar or a bag of peanuts a person, you know. We're splitting it. And that's what we're running on. So we're running on empty, you know, and 1,000 calories a day.
Something I just wanted to add, the Juliana days for me were still the adjustment period, getting used to the amount of food, right? Like I said before, I usually eat 3,000 calories a day, like a lot of protein, a lot of carbs. And I clearly remember sitting there after having the quarter of the energy bar, and I saw tinamous going by. And normally tinamous, beautiful birds. And I was sitting there like, food. You know, it's crazy how your body starts to change, and now you're in that survival mode, you know?
I think we were all thinking the same thing, watching this little turkey-like thing wander through the forest. We were all transfixed on it, just watching it, going, is it acceptable? Can we catch it? Can we cook it? Is it possible? And then it wandered off into the forest, and missed opportunity. Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that's been the main topic of conversation, is we've been so hungry. Every single break that we have, which is sometimes every 200 meters, we discuss food. And what was hilarious is we were all just chilling. We were quiet for a few minutes. I looked over to Jacob, and he's scrolling through food pictures on his phone.
And now we all do.
And now we all do.
Best pastime now. Yeah, I found that if I eat my handful of peanuts whilst searching for food photos on my Photos app, it just becomes infinitely more enjoyable. So I can imagine that pack of peanuts is some like massive bowl of loaded fries, or a pad thai, or a curry, or a pizza, or a burger. I'm off again. But there's just so many brilliant foods.
There, isn't it?
I think we've all made a list now of foods that we want when we get back. Dick's got an order ready to go for the day we finally make it back to Paramaribo. But my notes section on my phone is just full of food I'm craving, and I think I'm set until Christmas now with all the different food I want to eat.
I'm really curious to see how our bodies are going to transform over the coming months. If we all agree to the food eating regime that we are building up in our minds, we're going to gain so much weight back.
So fat, but I'm keen for it. I've never been this skinny before, and it feels like a lot of effort just walking back up from the waterfall to camp. So the idea we've got another big day tomorrow is a little bit troubling, but I know it's the final couple of days of big hikes, and then we're back on the boats.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Like, same with me, I've sent Shabs a big list of food that I need her to fill the cupboards and fridge freezer with. But when we go back, our body will be in a state of not starvation, but because it's going through its reserves now, when we do start eating, the body's going to store that fat, thinking that we're going to go through the same process again. And I've had it time and time before on other expeditions where I have actually put on podge because I've just been eating. Even though I've been training, my body has then learned to store it, thinking we're going to face what we're currently going through now again, but we're not. So it'll take a while to train the body. Yeah. So we had the mountain, the highest mountain. That was a brute. I think 16 to 17 hours we were hiking for. Again, under 1,000 calories that day. The source, it was amazing to find the source, because, you know, we set out here and we weren't sure if we would come across it. And that for me was the biggest bugbearer. I knew how challenging it's going to be in a jungle region to actually find the source, you know. There was one point that we were potentially sat on.
We were sat on the source.
Yeah, pretty much. We were sat on what we didn't know what it was at first. And it was at Dick that asked, like, "Oh, do you think we're going to find it?" And I was
making a video on my phone,
yeah,
going around everyone. And then I think, Jacob, you were the last person I asked, like, you think we're going to find it? And you're sitting there looking very sad, shaking your head. And ironically, you're the one with your feet in the water coming from the source itself. So we were there all along, and then we went on this big detour around, but we got there in the end, and that's what matters, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then after that, it was just more brutality, you know, breaking into the routine of jungle life. But we were starting to see a lot more nature as well. You know, I think the boys, you guys on night one, you saw a snake digesting a frog. We saw
an arrival.
a number of poisonous dart frogs. We saw capybara, which was amazing. And I think for you boys, you said it's the longest you've been able to sit down and actually just watch capybara for, because it potentially hadn't seen a human before, so wasn't necessarily scared enough to run, just more curious. But it was there's been so much. We also came across a waterfall, and we have no idea yet, of course, because we're still here doing the expedition, but we couldn't see it on any maps or GPS, which was crazy to come across. So it might already be discovered and named, but as of right now, we just can't find any evidence to suggest it has. So when we're back, we want to take this further, don't we? I think, you know, if we can seek professional advice, you know, from the real pros who know what they're talking about in terms of new discoveries and whatnot, then that would be amazing if we have found something and can add it to the maps. But if it's already been found, then it was still really cool to come across regardless, you know?
I also think that was a very appropriate end to our kayaking session, you know? It wasn't like, oh my God, another rapid, let's just sack it off and start walking. It was like, no, we have to stop now. There's this 15-meter waterfall blocking our trail. So
we didn't anticipate.
No, not at all. We had no idea it was going to be there. Yeah. So it was such a surprise.
Such a surprise.
I was so glad we scouted a little further, because at first we just saw a little like fallen trees over a little rapid, and by that time it was just one rapid after the other. We just kept on going, you know. We didn't even look up from any rapid anymore. It was like just another obstacle. Let's go. And Matt's like, I think I could see like a 5-meter waterfall behind it, and I was looking at the next rapid, and I was like, 5 meters is tall, you know, it's not 5 meters, but he saw something like behind the forest, you know, moving. Yeah. And once we scouted further up to see the what I thought you meant with the waterfall, it was like, oh shit, there's this 15-meter drop in the middle of nowhere. What the hell?
There's no way getting past it.
And we have not known anybody who actually went this far up. And even though, you know, it is so remote, you know, even indigenous people, I would not understand why people would want to go there.
No, right?
You know, if you look for wildlife, if you look for food, you know, you want to have fish, you want to be able to use your boat. This is not a place where you would drag your boat all the way up.
No, who would do that?
So some of those places where we encounter is like, why would people ever visit this?
Yeah.
And also sometimes I'm thinking, because at first, you know, it's like people might want to beat the record, you know, would you do it again? Hell no.
No.
Hell no. I'm so glad we got off there, like without any broken toes or shins or jaws or whatever, you know. Yeah. So that was part one.
Yeah.
The first couple of days.
The first couple of days. And then, you know, it was nice to get that done, tick off the source, tick off the highest mountain, you know, make our way back towards the river, and then eventually start heading downstream. And that was nice. because we saw lots of wildlife on the riverbanks, and we went through parts that were just so pristine that we would start whispering to each other, because as Matt said, out of the sign of respect, it's almost like people do not go there, and we can't be going there, causing all sorts of noises. So we were just quietly observing and just being at one with the jungle,
Yeah, it was the weirdest experience probably on that part of the river, and it's something I'm really looking forward to over the next few days as we get back onto the river. But it becomes a point where the nature around you is so quiet, and like you say, you out of respect you feel like you should do it. And the only thing I can compare it to is like when you walk into a church and there's this eerie quiet that you just know you can't talk loudly, and you just have to respect the area and be quiet. It felt exactly like that.
But we all shared that feeling, right? Because nothing was said. It was just we were all in the same state of mind where like we have to be very quiet. Even when I'm paddling, I'm going as gently as I can, and it just felt very, very magical down there. And it was the area that the previous expedition members described as being this Garden of Eden. So it was very, very fitting. I can definitely see why they described it like that.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess from there, we hit the junction, right? We continued for a couple of days. We hit the junction, and we pretty much added it in that we want to summit the second highest mountain as well, because this is a table mountain that we're currently on, and it's stunning. And especially Dick and Matt, they said it's paradise on earth. It's their favorite place. We must see it. And at the beginning, it was a bit like, it just felt like a massive detour. But I'm so glad to be here and to be on top of Table Mountain.
And Dick, you've tried to climb this mountain before, right? You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, about 6 years ago, I went to the airstrip, like 16 kilometers from here. There's an airstrip from a geological research somewhere in the 40s. And I've tried to climb it from that side. And I thought, 16K, it's pretty doable, like 3 days, something like that. A maximum of 2 to 3 kilometers a day we could cover because of the dense forest. And that was working from like 7 in the morning until 7 in the evening. So we were dead. And we didn't manage to reach the top whatsoever. We just straight lined it towards the closest point, which is also the highest point. After that, a friend of mine used our trail to get to the top. And he managed to climb up at some point. But halfway he had to come down because he couldn't have enough water. They were dehydrated. So they filled up the water again, went to the top. But the very top is a little overhang. So he had to sleep like right under the top basically. It was cold, it was wet. So I didn't make it. They sort of made it like up to a meter, I calculate, I say that they made it. But for me, I wasn't satisfied. I was never able to climb this mountain. So now to be able to approach it from a different side, where we now, with the current knowledge, North Ridge, the North Ridge of the mountain actually should be able to be climbable. And it was. However, the moment we started to climb here, it was very steep. It was a very narrow ridge. It had a lot of fallen trees. I was like, man, this does not look like the contour lines on the map. No. Luckily for us, after that, it flattened out a little bit, so the climb went a little easier.
And you really had to take over at that point, didn't you? Because I was out with my feet. So I was completely out with my feet. Jacob, you were just low on energy, was it?
I strained my arm.
Strained your arm as well.
Kayak up the,
yeah, that was it. And then Matt.
I had a double problem with my right arm.
Yeah, Matt. Well, I'll let you explain the issue.
Yeah, so the previous days I had a bit of an infection that had been getting progressively worse, so that was kind of shitty in itself. But then the morning that we left to head towards North Ridge, I did a bit of I say rookie error. I don't think anyone else is doing it, right? Like, normally you always shake out your boots in the morning in case there's spiders or whatever. But I didn't shake out my gloves. And I just remember this searing pain in my inside of my knuckle here. And it turned out there was a scorpion inside the glove. The most venomous scorpion species in Suriname. And that was the worst thing I ever had in my life. And it just... Oh, by far, yeah. And it just built, and it was a little concerning because I think you've heard stories about it being pretty severe in some cases. So
the venom can have a very diverse effect. So the scorpion is widespread throughout South America, but in some parts they cause like swollen limbs, other parts they cause nausea, diarrhea. So I was like, shit, this could be the end of today, you know.
Yeah.
So I was so glad you handled it like properly, you know.
And it's another thing ticked off the list. It's often like me and Dick say, it's nice to know that your body can handle these things. Because, you know, if you get stung by a wasp and it turns out you're allergic and you're in a place like this, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
So now I know, at least with baby ones with this species, then I'm good.
Yeah.
So it's something else ticked off the checklist, the sting
You don't have
checklist.
to be as paranoid when you're out here again,
Yeah.
future adventures, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
Second problem with your arm.
yeah,
Infection.
the infection.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that started off as something really small. Actually, during the last kayaking days, a little pimple-like spot underneath my watch, I thought caused by rubbing. And then Dick, you immediately told me, no, this is something else. And it just got worse and worse. Couldn't use the arm, got super infected. And then the last couple of days, you've patched me up, and now it's healing. But
Mention how that happened.
yeah, maybe
what happened.
you can tell it from your point of view. It was not my proudest moment.
So by this time, like Ash's feet were broken, Jacob's arm wasn't functional properly, Matt's arm wasn't functional, and I had a really, really bad night. I was so low on energy. I woke up blacking out all the time, and this was the day we needed to climb the mountain. I'm like, no, not this day, you know. But somehow we managed. I mean, we had about 3 lunches that day. So we had an energy bar and I think 2 bags of nuts, which got us up there. Between us, yeah. And Jacob spared his last little energy chew for me to get up to the top. And I swear you, like, every single calorie, every single little bit of sugar, energy, whatever is in there, we needed to get up there, you know. And then once we're up here, the cool thing is we do expeditions to this place every once in a while. And the last one has been in March. March. And we've had before that helicopters couldn't land here because of the weather. So people were stuck on the mountain, problems with food. So last expedition, we had a few kilos left. So like, you know what? We're going to send some extra food up there just in case of emergency. God, were we happy with that.
The peanut butter.
Oh my God. I think the kilo pot of peanut butter is what kept us going for the last couple of days. And that was something else.
When we arrived to camp, obviously we smelled the peccaries.
Yeah.
And then as Ash was coming back from the waterfall, me and Dick were like, Ash, peccaries have been through camp. It's not good. But I don't think you were buying it, right?
No, not for a second. Not for a second.
You're like, don't tell us that. Yeah. Oh my God. It was heaven on earth.
Having a movie night with the peanut butter, and we split it between us in quarters. Bear in mind, it was a 1 kilogram tub, and Jacob was full and felt sick.
I've never felt so unwell from food.
No, that was a write-off for you that rest of the evening.
Flying into bed, just feeling violently unwell.
Yeah.
And then woke up the next day feeling fantastic.
Yeah, and we watched Anchorman. And we had a big portion of
Kingsman
food.
was with the peanut butter.
Kingsman. Anchorman was the previous one.
Yeah.
Oh, it was, wasn't
We
it?
had 2
Kingsman.
movie nights.
Yeah, 2 movie nights. Kingsman was when we ate the peanut butter, had the big meal, and then the final one that brings us to this spot now was Table Mountain, the summit. So, as the crow flies, 8 kilometers across to the other side, you've got the East Ridge, which is the summit, right?
Yeah.
Of the and when I say the summit, it's how much higher than here? Maybe about 500, 600 meters high. Less.
400.
Is it 400 meters extra, but like 8k as the crow flies? And you know, we were pushing on. It was a tough day that day. It started well in the morning. You know, we took maybe 3 days worth of rations, didn't we? Food, thinking tops it should take 3 days. But then the morning went by. We broke into the afternoon. And it's the dry season right now, so water is very scarce. We had the 3 days of food, and the jungle just started to become denser and denser as we went on towards the summit, to a point where we were covering around 100 meters an hour at times.
Yeah, really, yeah.
And so I remember we frantically had to try to make it towards a fall called Grace Falls, which we knew had water. And even when we did eventually, luckily, we make it, it was a small stream just flowing off the edge.
That was the most horrible, most challenging jungle I had ever seen. I mean, it's like you said, Jacob, it felt really claustrophobic, like you were walled in, and even if you wanted to get out, you still have to come back the same way. And it was endless. And there was a point where we were even having to physically climb over the vines and crawling under, and it just seemed like there was no way.
The grass was cutting you up.
Yeah.
You know, the bamboo was the vines were tripping you up. The bamboo was just holding you down. Honestly, it felt like you were just stuck in this big giant spider web and couldn't move. You know, my through dock kit, it's tough and it's kept me protected, but it's shredded the through dock kit, and that's like some of the toughest kit out there. But eventually, you know, we stopped that evening. We had food. We said tomorrow is another day. The next day we were hoping for better, but it wasn't better. It was more of the same. If anything, was progressively getting worse. And it got to a point where we were hiking for about 3 hours. We tried to scramble on through more bamboo until we decided, you know, why don't we send the drone up and scout just to see how long this stretch goes on for? You know, does it get better? Does it get worse? Is it more of the same? And as Dick sent up the drone, we had no signs of it getting any better, and our morale had like dropped to an all-time low as we sat there. And then Dick came up with then another good idea, which was to contact someone who he thought had summited this mountain before. So we got the satellite phone out. We were hoping that the guy picks up, which he did, and we could hear him on the other side. And then to find out that actually this guy also hadn't quite made it to the summit, because he said it gets denser the closer you get to the summit. Not only that, there's potentially no evidence to suggest anyone has reached the summit. We don't know. So there was now no one to ask. And the only person that we could ask who has good knowledge of the area also said it was really too tricky, and he too had to turn back.
And he'd started from a much closer point as well. We'd crossed the entire mountain and hadn't even got to his start point by the time we made the call.
So we came to a group decision, and I think we handled it very well, that if we were to push on, we don't know how long it would take us. We had another 2 nights worth of food. We anticipate it taking maybe 5, 6, 7, perhaps more than a week to get to where we were trying to get to, covering potentially 100, 200 meters a day.
And having to get back.
And then having to get back. And so, you know, that was one of the times where I was really proud of us guys as well. You know, we handled it so well. We sat down and we did come to the conclusion that whilst we are 150 meters short in terms of the altitude, and maybe about 3 kilometers as the crow flies, as disheartening as it is, we decided to turn back. And, you know, we didn't quite make the summit of the second highest mountain. We made the top of Tabletop Mountain, but we didn't make the summit. So we climbed up here, but we didn't manage to get across to the far side.
We really gave it our best.
We really did.
Given the circumstances, I think we did a phenomenal job. So. And like you said, if it was an extra week on already stretched rations, we would have been broken by the end of that.
Yeah, and not only that, I think if it was the main objective, then obviously, you know, we would have had to come back to base camp, reassess it completely differently and go at it again. But the main objective is source to sea, you know, the world first record. And the second big objective, more for me in terms of, if we have anyone stating, oh, that's not the source, even though we can evidence it is, at least then we went beyond the source and climbed to the highest possible point, being the highest mountain in Suriname, of that Juliana top. So Juliana top, source to sea, was always the main thing. This was just something we wanted to throw in because it's the Garden of Eden. It is paradise on earth. We wanted to see it, and we have, you know. Yeah, so I think it's one of them. It's a win-win either way, because, you know, although we didn't make it, I think we've all learned a lot, haven't we? And we've been humbled 100%. by Mother Nature. You can't always win.
I think what is now a good next one is we're finally all pretty patched up. Ash's feet miraculously got back. Even on the worst day going up the mountain, he said, I'm good. They work again, you know. His toe is healing. It's just the fact that it was wet. Yeah. You know, Jacob's arm is good. Matt's arm we patched up. So still want to come back to that. It's I was like, you feeling good? Yeah, I'm all right. I'm still all right. And then he just fell over in my lap. And I told the guys, yeah, he just passed out. And at first they thought, wait, what? No, right? I was like, no, he just, maybe you could help him up, you know. And it will help me, you know, clean the wound. And then when he's awake, it's done, you know.
It's been a while. In my defense, it's been a while.
But all in all, we're all patched up now. We feel a little better. I mean, we're still very low on energy. But I think for all of us, it's now, we hope to be able to cover the 2 days that we used to climb up here. We hope to be able to cover that in 1 day down. Yeah. If we'll be able to do that, we'll be back at the river, back at the kayaks, have some more food stored there. And finally, we'll be able to fish again, you know, get some proper calories in our body.
Yeah.
Really feels like a game changer. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get there soon.
Yeah, I think now we've got these objectives out of the way. It feels like the finish line is finally coming into sight a long way away. And the sun has just set, and it feels like a good time to wrap up and maybe focus on the next 2 weeks
steps
we've got ahead of us.
Yeah, so we've still got 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks, if all goes well, to get to the finish. This is our main objective, is to get to the finish, but we want to enjoy the journey. We know that we've got at least another week left of, you know, being truly remote. You know, it's day 22. We've not seen a single human being whatsoever.
We saw a plane fly past.
Yeah, we saw a plane, and me and Jacob were like tribesmen. We were looking up like, whoa, a plane. First sign of human, you know, of civilization. And so we'll have another week of that, I reckon, which will bring us to a month without seeing anyone.
That's crazy, right?
Which is crazy. Like, think about that. I know that we've got the 4 of us, and, you know, it's not solo, but it is the 4 of us going a whole month in utter wilderness without seeing a single Homo sapien whatsoever.
And it's not just staying in the same point. We're traveling
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah, covering big distances. And so we will...
4 kilometres.
Yeah, not big distances. 100 metres here on Tafelberg. Yeah, but spirits are high. We're all connecting. We've all bonded. We're getting on well. We're tackling each day as it comes. We're trying to be present, but we also do dream about all the food that we are going to be having when we return. And so 2.5, 3 weeks left, and history is made, potentially. So this was a very brief podcast from the top of Tabletop Mountain, and we will absolutely do another one. If you have more questions, we're going to add those questions to the first podcast we did as a team, and we're going to be doing a very big one on completion in Zootopia, where we'll be answering all of your questions.
With full bellies.
With full bellies. But then I do think that you'll actually see this once we're already finished, so maybe scrap that. But yeah, guys.
We'll try and get to them.
Yeah, we'll try to get to them.
If we post this before we sit down, but we'll see.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So we'll see you in the next, and hopefully we all make it out safe, well, and alive.
Let's do it.
The goddess.